Welcome back, everybody. This is another episode of Fandom Nation. I'm joined by Johnny and Randy, and tonight, short little show, nothing too long, I promise. I know 1 week ago we said it was a short show, and judging by the timeline that I read today while putting this one together, it went 2 hours and 11 minutes. I assure you, we got about 45 minutes for you tonight, and then we'll be back tomorrow night with probably a very long discussion that Johnny's going to host, and we may even have some special guests joining us for that episode. But in the meantime, my partners in crime, the Foos Man himself, not the Fizz Man, but the Foos Man. It's Fizz. What's going on, buddy?
Nothing. Trying to watch a playoff game while doing the show, never easy, but surviving.
OHL?
Yeah.
Here. What are they at now, anyway?
This is game 4 of the final.
Leaf interest on both sides. You got Danford versus
Cowan.
Is it not London again? Yeah. So,
yep.
Leaf fans might not like this take, but I'm going to tell you right now, much bigger chance that Danford has a bigger impact on a Leaf roster than Cowan does. Just saying, Cowan is very soft, and Danford looks built for the NHL. So I am glad they didn't move him yet, knock on wood. Also joining us tonight, had to rush him out of his dinner, may still even be eating it, I'm not sure. Man, myth, legend, Randy. What's going on, dude?
I wouldn't say rushed me out of my dinner, but I guess I'll be having something when we're done here. Not a whole lot going on, though. Just trying to get through this work week. It's been kind of hectic. And, of course, having the series finale premiering tonight, not just a season finale, but a series finale, is given what we got last week. I'm excited what we're going to get this week, but I'm also kind of saddened because that's it. And given what we've been getting quality-wise, it just bums me out to know that this really is it.
Yeah, I got some things I definitely want to say on that when we get to Andor tonight. Bunch of topics tonight. We're talking the timeline to the Halloween series and potentially movie. We are talking Scream 8 being confirmed. I actually have some thoughts on that, and whether you're the biggest Scream fan or not, if you know movie making, you probably have an opinion on this. We're going to talk about Star Wars Andor, not just in terms of what we've seen, but it has gone from a critical success to a rating success, something season 1 wasn't able to do, and have some thoughts on why that might be. And then we're going to end some of this some wrestling talk. I got some Braun Breaker thoughts, and I want to pick your two minds. You guys are both sharper wrestling fans than me, and want to get Braun out there for discussion. Big shout out to Byron in the chat, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Glad you're still with us. Big shout out to Dustin as well. And honestly, big shout out to the just mass amount of people that came out for the Halloween video we did last week. It was almost like a kick in the ass to let the channel know, hey, we're still around and we still care. And but also new faces. We had almost 40 new subscribers off of one video. The first time that's happened since 2022. So thank you to everybody who tuned into that. And we'll lead off with some Halloween discussion to begin. We don't really have time to waste. So Production Weekly came out with they're the go-to for if you're looking for a confirmation in terms of what's in production or what's coming into production and what's not. Production Weekly is one of the just top places you can go to. However, as I pinned a post on that video, they made a bit of an error. Not in terms of how it was officially listed, so they deserve all the credit for that, but you have to be a subscriber, which is not free. It's quite expensive, actually, to be able to click on each one of those individual projects and see the studio involved and potential dates and what roles they're hiring staff for, etc. And in the initial post, which everyone can see, it's listed as Untitled Halloween Project. Everybody under the sun is going to jump to the conclusion that it's for the Halloween franchise. It was not for the Halloween franchise. It was a Jeremy Saulnier project, which I know some people might say, well, maybe he's the guy doing Halloween. It's not. It's a different studio. I want to say the studio that was listed for that project is Paramount. Not a great listing for them to do. They probably should have just listed it as Jeremy Saulnier project and not Untitled Halloween project. While Halloween's far from the biggest franchise in the world, it is still something that has tons of fans, millions of fans even, that wasn't a great listing. And if you listen to the video that I put out there, it's only like 7 or 8 minutes long. Even I in the video say, someone just got scored on.
No,
No.
penalty.
Well, hey, I'm a Leaf fan. I'm used to that. Excuse me. I put out there that I found it very weird that and I'm not like tooting our own horn, but that we or any of the other content creators that cover Halloween accurately, whether it's 3C Films, Braden Timmons, even a guy like Dave McRae wouldn't have caught wind of this before. And I've been saying on this channel, outside of video game stuff that's come out recently, it has been quiet as a mouse. Not very much. So when this came out, it was kind of like, oh, okay. And I believe it came out one day after our show, too. So we were really quick to put a post up on the video to say, hey, this was not necessarily debunked, because all signs point to the Halloween series still being in production, and keeping in mind they want to build it into a movie, or lead into a movie. I think it warrants a discussion on, so what is the timeline here? Okay, because word came out about the rights in 2023 towards the end of it. Okay, and then last year, springtime, we were given a confirmation that the series would be a Michael Myers-based story and feature characters that were from some of the original films with an S, not just one, which then kind of threw, because there's so many different timelines. Some exist in one, some exist in another. Safe bet this is another new thing. The question is, what's a realistic timeline for this release? And I was talking to Matt, who a big supporter of the channel, and comes on the channel. We're already 2025, guys. We're 2025, halfway through May. And it's not in production weekly, which lists things that are going to go into production, usually about anywhere from now to 6 months from now that might be hiring positions. It's not listed, which is fine. It's not like, oh my God, it's getting canceled. But realistically, if they've hit a snag, and one of the last updates we had was there's no showrunner. They have an idea in the direction of the story they want to go, because that's just the way they do things. If you look at all previous Halloween movies, before they hire the guy that comes on, they already have an idea what direction they want to take the movie. Or in this case, the series, which is why you got details from Miramax last year. Even though there was no showrunner or directors attached. So I sit here and I go, it's 2025. And Matt and I had a bit of a debate on this. I think what they're hoping to do, I know early on the hope was to have now there's a goal?
Now there's a goal.
Now there's a goal. Oh, okay. Was it Cowan?
No.
No. So now you have, we're halfway through May 2025. Franchises do not let anniversary dates go, smart ones, without doing something for the anniversary date. And for me, I sit here and I go, if they're actually able to pull off doing a season of TV that builds into a movie, that's a big if for me. I know that's what they've stated they want to do, but it's backwards. Most of the times you do movie into TV. It's hard to do TV into movie and have any level of success. There's just not a great track record of it. Now, that's not to say that the movie necessarily has to be a theatrical release, but it's Miramax, it's Trancas, they're going to want a theatrical release. I think, despite them, early on hoping to have something for 2026, I think that's past. And I know people might say, hey, we're only halfway through May 2025. And yeah, they could turn something around quick enough to have it out for late 2026. That would be unwise. That would be rushing things. That would be putting something out for the sake of putting something out. But I do think when you look at where we are now, you know, if things are still progressing behind the scenes, big if, it I think it's fair to say you could see a series by October 2027 that leads into a 50-year anniversary movie in 2028. I think that's key, not to have the series out by 2028, but to have the movie out that you're making money in cinemas. Um, I think that's incredibly vital. And I do think there's enough time between now and then, with all the time that's already gone into it, to have that ready. My question to both of you, you both follow movies to an extent, and we've talked about it enough on the channel, is, 2 years and basically 2.5 years, slightly under 2.5 years, enough turnaround time to go from development to official pre-production to having an 8 to 10 episode series out and then having the movie out the following year in 2028. My Matt thought that would be rushing things when I spoke with him. I see him in the chat right now. How's it going, buddy? um, I think that he has a point. However, if this is a connected series, a connected universe, the series builds into a movie, you should be developing both at the same time, not one or the other. That way you can turn it around like that. How realistic is that? I'm not saying what I hope for here, and I'll start with you, Johnny. I'm not saying what I hope for. I'm saying what I believe is realistic. If I was hoping for, I'd be telling you guys the series is still gonna, hit a 2026 release date and then have a movie for 2028. But I think the 2027/2028 fix is possible. Um, what say you?
I mean, I think you're absolutely right. It would have to be a parallel production. You couldn't do the series and then the movie and have it done in time. There's just not enough time to do that. So I think you have to produce them in parallel. And I think that to a degree, presuming Halloween, assuming they sort of stick to the Halloween formula, in that you have Michael and your main protagonist, your final girl, as it were, then I think you can do that with a series leading into a movie. Because in reality, you only need two main characters going from one to the other. And one of those, let's be honest, if you hired two people to play Michael, would not be detrimental as long as they're both on the same page. In both look and style.
Quickly on that
So,
note, hold on to your thought there because you mentioned the playing Michael part, right?
mm,
So I hear all the time Aaron Armstrong, Aaron Armstrong, Aaron Armstrong, because he was the guy that did the heavy duty stunts. Excuse me, in Kills and Ends, and I believe 2018 as well. Um, and I get why people want him. He's younger. James Jude Courtney said he was done. Let's be honest. Someone threw a check at James Jude Courtney that was, he's not exactly, super, super rich, that he'd probably come back for. But there are production things that prevent you from hiring. There are laws, union laws, that prevent you from hiring certain people on certain projects based on where it's filmed. For example, if they filmed the series up in Canada, do not rule that out, by the way, because Halloween has filmed up here before, and Vancouver is a mainstay for a ton of productions, especially TV. James Jude Courtney and Aaron Armstrong would be immediately eliminated from contention. I know people jump on that. They want them. They want them. It's not as simple as casting an actor because you're casting a stunt guy to play Michael. So there are hurdles to overcome there based on where you film this thing.
yeah, I mean, those are the behind the scenes stuff that most people don't think of. They just think of all of that stuff. And I think that's definitely going to play a part in it. Obviously, um, I think your easier path there is James Jude Courtney if you're filming in Canada, because he's not doing the stunts of Michael. He's the walk and prowl. He's the stalk. He's the kill, but he's not the guy doing the heavy stunt work. So that is a much easier path for their options. But it all comes down to what kind of production you're doing. Because to me personally, I don't think you really need the heavy stunt guy as Michael. You don't need those pieces as Michael. I don't think they were detrimental. Like, I mean, we look at the sequence with the firefighters, as being a great sequence, but then you look at something like Michael versus the mob, and you realize, did we really need that? No. And there's so many other sequences that it just, it all comes down to what kind of Michael story you're telling, what Michael is doing, how necessary big set pieces are to that. And let's be honest, in a TV series, you're already going to have a lot less. You might get one or two big sequences over the course of an entire season, excuse me.
No,
And
you're right, but a lot of people just want Michael, stabby, stabby, stabby.
yeah,
And let's be honest, that doesn't work for a TV show. Not one
no,
that you want to be successful. The
no,
protagonist need to carry the story.
yeah. You need to rely very heavily on the James Carpenter Michael. The Michael that stalks in the shadows. That
John Carpenter.
Yeah, that.
Who's
I'm gonna
James?
blame it on watching the hockey game.
Uh,
It's the James Jude Courtney. It's all of those things. It's the segregating your brain 10 different ways and getting it wrong. But it's you need to go back to that Carpenter style of Michael where you see him without seeing him. He's in the shadows. He's in the hedges. He's there, but you have to look for him. Type of Michael who's present without being present. Like, that's part of what made we talked about that style so many times, that the beauty of Michael was in not seeing Michael. He was the shape, it was the it was the stalk, it was the hunt. Those are the things that we spoke a lot about leading into kills and ends, were the things that we wanted to see more of. And this is the perfect opportunity to reintroduce that, because you have that opportunity with a TV series where you're not going to get, you're not going to get giant set pieces in every episode. You're not going to get big kills in every episode. You might get a kill in every episode, but a lot of the times it's going to be something that bookends an episode and starts the next one. It's not going to be the big action pieces that people have come to expect, outside of depending on how they structure it, outside of your penultimate, your finale type episodes. Those are where you're going to get those the big confrontation pieces. So I don't know, but like sort of go back to the point we started on, that you
This is why I cannot do this with the Leafs on. I just can't.
so you have to be able to produce in parallel, and that's not easy when you're going to sort of have your directors for a TV series. You're going to have multiple, most likely. You're going to have multiple directors. Now, obviously, there are exceptions to that rule, and this could be one of those, but I don't see that happening. So, I think you have to have directors on the same page, producers on the same page, and actors and actresses on the same page. And it's not going to be easy to do
And by the
that.
way,
So,
this is not a prediction; it's a spoiler. Thanks, Paul Heyman. That never happens on Halloween, hardly ever, and I don't expect it to happen this time around.
no. So, like, it's I think I don't want to say we're asking too much for that to happen, but from a certain point of view, we are. Is it possible? Sure. Is it the smartest decision? Personally, I don't think so. I think that you end up with one of the two being lesser focused, and it will, ruin. I can't remember who it was when we first started this topic. You put up a chat that uh, somebody in the chat said that a bad series would hurt a movie, and that's absolutely the case. If you have a lukewarm series and you're building up to this movie, if people don't get invested in the series, they're not going to care about the movie, because the characters are going to be the same, the story is going to be carrying over from one to the other, and you're going to end up with that example of the thing that Marvel and Disney are trying to get away from, in forcing you to watch TV series as homework for movies.
It's why, if they're smart, and it's the way you do this, it just is, the movie needs to be done in a way where you don't need to watch the series. But if you did watch the series, you get more for it. And if they don't do that and they go too inside baseball, they're going to fail. It doesn't even matter if the series is a success, in my opinion. You can't do it that way. I know people hate hearing that because all of us like a little inside baseball, but that doesn't make it a success. Kenny, how's it going, buddy? Let me just give Kenny a shout out. Kenny is a longtime friend of, whether it's the channel or
Day one.
Johnny and I's original podcast, Star Wars Wastelands. Kenny has put himself back out there on YouTube, and I saw the video. And Kenny, I left a comment on, I believe it was Facebook. I should have left it on the video though. I think when I click on the video from Facebook, though, it doesn't have me logged in when it brings me to YouTube. I will correct that. But shout out to Kenny, who's been nothing but loyal and faithful to us for 10 years now, and just a really good guy. And those are hard
Put out
to
a new
find
video yesterday
on the internet. Oh, did he? Okay, well, I need to check that out. Jade and I watched his first one, and Kenny, I just want you to know that we appreciate you. We always appreciate you. I wish I was optimistic as you were about Superman, but I will agree with you on this. David Cornsweet does remind me of a young Tom Welling. That I will agree with. And by the way, I have just started a Smallville rewatch for the first time in almost 2 years. I would like to do some content on it. I don't know what that's going to look like, because I'm watching an episode of Smallville and then I'm watching an episode of Talkville, so I get the behind the scenes in it as well. So it's going to take a while to go through, but it's fun. I just I'm about halfway through episode 4 and had to stop. Just remember. Not Transference. It's the one with Lana's obsessed friend who can change the way she looks like. Lex Luthor robs a bank in the beginning of the episode, but it's not actually Lex. And that's also damn, who's that from? From Pete. So yeah, Smallville. Love Smallville, and no problem, Kenny. We love you, buddy. Don't ever forget that. And I apologize because I know I tipped our hat a little bit, but we got some changes coming up here on the channel. I'm sworn to secrecy, or these two are going to kill me. And the simple fact is we don't know exactly what it looks like yet, but it's going to be best for everybody. And we're excited when we get there. You do need to get through Andor, Matt, and we're going to get to that. But before we do, Randy, your take. Is it realistic to expect a series and a movie by 2027 and 2028? And do you think they need to be developed hand in hand?
I mean, is it possible? Of course, anything's possible, regardless of how improbable it really is. But looking at it as a whole, the only way this works is if you kind of film it back to back. But in this instance, I feel like the smart thing to do would be go back to basics, right? You're on location, you have everything set up. Everybody understands that what they're filming is going to eventually lead into a movie, and you just kind of, you have to get everything in order. It's the only way it's going to work. So if you really don't do that, it's not going to happen. You said it, Johnny said it, I'm going to say it. Don't put stuff out there just for the sake of putting stuff out there. It's, we've seen what type of movies come out. We've seen what type of shows come out. Look at what Fox did with Marvel when it comes to like the X-Men and things like that. Look what Sony did to the Spider-Verse, because they were just trying to throw stuff out there to keep licenses and try to make money off of the MCU, and we got the villains that nobody really went to see. So this is one of those things where you have to. I would say the best thing to do is you're going to have to put a focus somewhere, whether it's a movie or a series. We need something. As long as you don't kind of. I mean, we know we're going to get a re-release of the original for the 50th anniversary edition, where God only knows what they're going to tweak next. I mean, at least they're not going to go George Lucas on it, but still, it's the idea of we don't need it brighter, we don't need it more colorful, we don't need more added sounds. We just want to enjoy the movie. But as for a new movie, they really need, at this point, focus on the script. I think a brand new Halloween movie for the anniversary is the way to go. I think because that's really where your bread and butter is, especially considering you're talking about trying to make an episodic series that we don't really feel that, I don't know if is a fit for Michael Myers, because of what you said. People are going to expect, kills every show and every episode, and that's not feasible. We need a slow burn so that when we get that payoff at the season finale, it's worth it. And it's hard to do with horror franchises. Let's be honest. It's really hard to do it unless unless it was meant to be a TV series. I mean, think about the first 5 seasons of Supernatural. It was meant to be a TV series, no matter how much people wanted to see a movie or something more. And it was excellent. Those, we got exactly what we were all hoping for in that series, even if it did run 15 seasons overall, and there was hit and miss clearly. But the idea is that type of horror in general, that play on it, was meant to be a TV series. Halloween was always a movie. It's always been a movie. They no matter how hard they've thought about it, clearly they want to make a series, but does it translate into a TV series? And the only way it's going to do that is if they really take the time and focus to create a very dramatic script that has strong character development and actually engrosses people to the point where by the season finale, everybody's all in, and we get this big surprise or big battle or something that would lead potentially into a second season or into another movie. So honestly, we need the movie first. Not because it doesn't have to be connected to TV series. That's the thing. This doesn't have to be a TV series. This has to be something special for the fans for the 50th. Then put put everything in the basket for a TV series that does lead into a movie. At this point, that's the only thing I can think of that gives us more content, gives us a chance to keep Halloween on people's minds for the coming years and foreseeable future, and really have a shot at doing something different and unique that we've never seen before, that will actually build upon the legacy of Michael Myers.
Yeah, if I had to throw a prediction out there, if they're smart, and sometimes they're not, we've seen some of the previous Halloween movies, and if you've read Taking Shape 1 or 2, the disaster behind the production of several of them, and several of the ones that didn't end up getting made. If they're smart and development keeps getting hung up on the TV series for whatever reason, it's time to pivot so you have a new movie for the 50th year anniversary. Miramax and Trancas co-owned the rights for both. That's a common misconception, is people think Miramax is only involved on the TV series now. No, they're the co-owners of the movie rights as well. So don't be shocked if a pivot happens. Doesn't mean a series will never happen, but the clock is ticking and time is running out. That being said, share your thoughts down below on when you think we might see not only the Halloween series, but it's important to remember that they said they want to have a series built into a movie. Share them down below when you think we might see both. And on next week's show, we are going to discuss the rumor that came out last year from Cinestealth, the only tangible thing we have in terms of what the setting might be for this series again. and bring that back up and see if how people are feeling about it and if we think that's still realistic. So be on the lookout for that. And also next week, tentatively, this is Sean talking out of his ass because he's not discussed it with the two of these guys, not in terms of details, anyways. We have said we want to do a watch party for Rogue One, and we want to do a watch party for A New Hope because we feel like this is kind of like a new trilogy. It's like the Halloween version of 1, 2, 4 in my head's its own trilogy. Well, now you got Andor seasons 1, season 2 as movie 1, basically super big movie, and then you have Rogue One and A New Hope. My hope is that next week we are doing an overall Andor review on one of the days with the Halloween stuff, and then the other day we will be doing a watch party of Rogue One, and then the following week we'll do one for A New Hope. I don't want to have it go forever because I want to watch Rogue One pretty quickly after watching Andor. So as long as we can make the times work, I'd say that's tentatively the plan for the next couple weeks. Just pay attention to updates as they come out, whether it's on Twitter or YouTube post that gets posted, and we will let you know then. Pivoting though, speaking of pivoting, let's pivot over to another piece that came out from Production Weekly. Scream 8 is confirmed. It is in Production Weekly. It is not titled Untitled Scream Movie. It is titled Scream 8, and the studio lines up. And look, I like Scream 6, so I'm a little iffy on Scream 7 just because it just seems everywhere, and I don't like the rumor of how all the other people are getting involved, whether it's true or not. We'll see. I want to keep this one brief. Here's my thoughts. If you already are hiring for Scream 8, okay, meaning the movie's going to happen, I hope it's because Scream 7 requires a sequel, that it's left on a cliffhanger. Because when you think about it, guys, none of the Scream movies leave off on cliffhangers. None. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6. They're all fairly definitive endings. So this time around, why don't you give us the cliffhanger that requires Scream 8 and not just, oh, we're putting another Scream movie in production? If it's just, oh, we're doing another movie, then it's like, for me, will I see it? Yeah, of course. But will I be all that intrigued by it? No, I'll probably be trying to, go to the movie theater and win free tickets again to see it. But if Scream 7's designed to require a sequel because there's a cliffhanger, I'm more open to it. Where do you guys fall with that? Randy, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, honestly, you're right. That's the only way it makes sense. Obviously, you can only start and stop so many times. You can only sit there and have to think up of creative ways of bringing creating a new ghost face essentially every single time. To me, that was like one of the kind of things that has frustrated me about those movies in general, is some of the really just, for me personally, some of the really dumb ways they've brought some of these people in, and like, oh, this is why I'm being Ghostface, and I'm just like, ugh, okay. But to greenlight something so quickly when the movie hasn't even been out, hasn't even released, that's, I mean, I can't really complain much. I mean, Fallout Season 3 already got greenlit before, with Fallout Season 2 coming out later this year. So it's not like it's not impossible for an IP to have stuff greenlit early. But it's just the idea that it needs to make sense. It has to make sense. If it doesn't make sense to do it, then why do it? Unless you really truly think, you've got something special there. But beyond that, I'm at a wait and see at this point, because I want to see I want to see 7 before I sit there and be like, yeah, this needs a sequel.
I think that, I don't know what I think yet from one to the other. It just, they're gonna keep greenlighting them until they stop making money. That's just the nature of franchise. Nowadays. Like look at what happened to the Saw franchise. They made money until they stopped making money, and then they cut it off until a reasonable length of time, and then brought it back. Let's be real. It's what they did with Scream the first time. They did the first three and stopped, and then came back and stopped again, and then came back again. Like,
And they stopped after
it's
4 because they thought 4 was going to be this raging financial success. And
exactly.
guess what? It wasn't.
So like that's the nature of known IPs. They're gonna keep greenlighting them until they stop making money, and then they'll back away. That's just that's the nature of it. They're not, especially these types of franchises that aren't super expensive to produce. Like it's not a huge, this isn't $100 million movie they're outlaying. Like it's just not. It's not that level of production. So they're not concerned. Like, yeah, okay, you got an idea. Last movie did great. This one's trending in that direction of doing great. Yeah, go ahead. Green light, get started on the next one. Like, what's the worst? You get into production, this one tanks hardcore, and we cancel the next one?
What
Oh, well.
scares me is I think you're right. Like I think that's the more likely outcome here is they're going, okay, well, we're trending on all the socials. People are interested in Scream 7. Nev Campbell's returning, even though she only had one movie off and was still mentioned in that movie, and why she's not around in that movie. So it's not like she had no part of that movie in terms of Sydney's character. But yeah, I think you're more likely right, but I hope that you're not because they have the opportunity here to do something different. And I thought for 2/3 of Scream 6, they were doing that. And then the last third of the movie happens, and it's like, eh. I think they have the opportunity to tell a 2-part story here. Will they? Who knows? Share your thoughts, though, down below on what your thoughts are on Scream 8 officially being greenlit. Do you want it to be a continuation of 7, or do you just not care and you want more Ghostface? Let me know. Finding I'm more picky these days and need a little more meat on the bone to chew on. And speaking of meat on the bone to chew on, Star Wars Andor series finale drops here in about 12 minutes time. Could not be more excited. It's a little bittersweet for the reasons Randy mentioned off the top of the show. But I am happy to see this. It's going to be really hard to not have this one go into a bit of a longer chat, but because we are on time constraints, we really cannot. And hopefully, we can elaborate on some of the stuff next week. But let's start off with this. How's everyone feeling heading into tonight? Here's my general feel. I don't think there's any chance it can live up to last week because, in my eyes, last week is the third best Star Wars ever created, almost second best Star Wars ever created. And here's an example of that. So I went back and watched the series finale of Kenobi this week. Just wanted to experience it again because I hadn't experienced it in a while and didn't want to watch the rest. I wanted that moment where Obi-Wan's trying to talk to Anakin, but I didn't want to just watch it on YouTube. I wanted the episode build, And here's the thing, guys. It didn't even come close to making me feel as emotional as Andor did. And I cannot believe I'm saying that as an Obi-Wan Kenobi fan. Johnny knows if you go back and find old audio of us towards the end of Star Wars Wastelands and both of us ranting and raving how Andor is a series that we don't need. And Johnny's a converted guy, by the way. He might not be in love with the series, but he went from a guy who quit after 2 episodes to, if you've watched him the last few weeks, he's been fairly engaged in this, and more so than other people that I know that I thought would be more engaged in this. I just stick the landing. It does not need to live up to last week. There's going to be people that expect it to be, oh, well, we need episode 8 and 9 again. If that's where your expectation bar is for this week, I don't think it's going to get hit. But I think it'll be damn good TV and writing, and Tony Gilroy hasn't failed us to this point. And I'm excited, but I also do not have insane expectations. Johnny?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It just the expectation is stick the landing. They've built to this point, and you're right. I don't think there's anything they can follow that up with last week's drop this week to be as satisfying because unfortunately they sort of shot all of their bullets in the story we expected last week. We've been building towards and expecting the Gorman massacre. We've been building towards and expecting, Mon Mothma's speech at the Senate. Those were the moments that we were building towards, that we were excited for, and we got them all last week. So, what's left? You know, I, you know,
I think there's
I'd
two
say,
left. Maybe you have one, but the two that
I
come
mean,
to mind for me is Luthen.
yeah,
It's going to be hard to say goodbye to that character, regardless of how we have to do it. Regardless, even if they do the unexpected and they write him off and he goes hide somewhere, which I can't see. That does not seem like him. If you listened to last week, he was okay with burning his bridges and accepting the fact that he is going to die during this. So Luthen, that's going to be a hard goodbye. I think we're going to get it. And the Death Star, they need some concrete evidence something super bad is going on. And other than those two, I can't think of anything.
yeah. I mean, Luthen is obviously that's the question mark remaining. As far as the parts of the story that they've told that we still need to see, because he is he has become so important in both the creation of the rebellion and in the series. Let's be honest. For a large portion, he was the most interesting character in the whole series, far and away. Um, I'd say Mon Mothma has probably taken that mantle from him and run with it after the last drop of episodes. But still, he's a very important character that we need a satisfying ending to, and him riding off into the sunset to watch the sunsets of a random planet is not that. That is not a satisfying end to this character. He needs to there needs to be not necessarily a blaze of glory, but there needs to be a satisfying ending to Luthen's story, and they might have a few outs. Last week we sort of fell face first into the what if he's actually a Jedi theory, and you know I'll admit that would be a satisfying end to his story, because it would be so far out of left field that we never saw it coming until a random thought partway through the end of the second season that you know would be genuinely legitimately shocking enough that it would be good, and you know I'd be interested in how they tell that story. But outside of that, his ending needs to be poignant, needs to be it needs to be intense from a story perspective. And I don't think him being a Jedi is hard. Obviously, we kind of stumbled into that one last week, and we made our jokes and our references of ways that we could see it working out. But it's I'd say that that's like a 1% chance, but it's still. I'm excited to see the ending of his story. I want to see how they tie in Rogue One, and how we get to that. Because there are a lot of interesting things to it. I think we're probably gonna get some drops specifically relating to, I think, Jin. Is a character we might hear mentioned in some form or fashion in this, because there isn't much
At the
else
very
left.
least, your dad.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'd love to see him pop up in a cameo. That'd be great. But it just I don't know. You're right. What they did last week is going to be it damn near impossible to beat. It's the Game of Thrones problem. The penultimate episode is better than the finale. Um,
May I interject for 1 second?
Go right ahead.
I I love Dustin, great supporter of the channel, loves to talk a lot of wrestling with us too. But I would suggest, Dustin, if you think that this is possible, you haven't been paying attention to the show. There ain't a chance this show is giving you that. It's just not happening. And I'll go one step further. You're not going to Palpatine either. Let's cool the expectations down. There's not a need for him, because at this point, it's already been well established. He has his puppets in the Senate. Yeah, if he sees something he doesn't like, then he'll send word down. His goal is the Death Star, the planet killing weapon right now. which is obviously a big part in this, but he's too busy fucking around with Sith voodoo magic in the background and using Vader as
Working
a
on his
slave.
clone protocols.
There's just I wanted it to at the beginning, and the more I watched how this season played out, the more I realized you don't need it because Palpatine is in the show. He's everywhere. He was the Gorman massacre. He's all of it. Just because you don't see him doesn't mean he's not there. And that's not a shot at you, by the way, Dustin. I love Ian. Ian is great. He's a fantastic actor. And I certainly would rather him end his Star Wars note on this than a hologram on Kenobi or that fucking abyss known as Rise of Skywalker. But I don't think it's in the cards. But hey, if I'm wrong, and we see this happen, I'll eat a pie on camera for you next week. Go ahead.
I don't think that's the punishment.
I'll take the pie to the face, not eat it.
You're gonna eat a pie. Like that's what? That's just dessert, pal.
Give me some apple and some French vanilla ice cream, and I'm set. Thanks, Byron. That's appreciated, buddy.
It's going to be exciting. Like you said, I am a convert to the Andor family. So if you'd have told me a year ago I'd be excited for the last 3 episodes, I would blatantly call you a liar and tell you there would probably be expletives. As Sean can attest, there were expletives when he pitched the Andor rewatch heading into season 2. So like it's I'm here for that. I am more excited for it than I thought I would be, and let's get this show on the road so I can get watching it.
I'm sure we will be. I'll be getting hopefully I'll be asleep. The doctor's on pretty strict. I need to sleep more orders, so hence why we can't go forever tonight. But I'm sure there'll be messages between Johnny and I throughout the night that I don't know if they'll hit like last week, but there'll be something. Randy, give us your thoughts.
I definitely am not expecting anything close to what we got last week. I mean, you have certain websites out there talking about how episode 8 is considered one of the top 10 TV show episodes in history. And I don't know, I can almost see it if it truly is. And it's well deserved. It was something that I didn't know I needed to see. With the amount of emotion that came out of me for that. But now we got the final 3. We got the season finale. I mean, there are some expectations. I mean, we're all in agreement. Something has to happen to Luthen. If he goes off into the sunset and nothing happens, then it's just a huge letdown. I expect a blaze of glory of some sort. I'd also be very upset if he got assassinated. That would be kind of some bounty hunter took him out or something like that. That would be very disappointing. I expect this man to basically fight to his very last breath. Either that or go kamikaze on something with his badass ship, because that thing is amazing. But, we know everything's going to lead up to, I'm assuming, where Andor meets his contact, which is the start of Rogue One. So I'm guessing he's on his way to meet the contact.
The interesting thing about that is this week would have to do something different than the previous weeks when you think about it mathematically. This week is still supposed to be 1 year before the Battle of Yavin. Rogue One does not happen 1 year before the Battle of Yavin. It happens maybe a couple weeks at most before the Battle of Yavin. So is there multiple time jumps this week? Or because I've heard it too. I've heard them say it leads right up to Rogue One. Well, the only way to lead right up to Rogue One is you're going to have another time jump here sometime during these episodes.
Yeah.
So,
but obviously they're talking about how going right into Rogue One is almost like is a must after this ends. So I'll be curious. Hopes. I mean, you could always sneak ships in there that we all know that are in the timeline that could be flying around. Those are always cool. You could throw even some droids in there here and there that can just be buzzing around somewhere, Chopper on Yavin or something like that, because we all know that at this point in time, the rebel, they're involved. So we know Hera and crew are involved by this point, because we even saw the ghost during the Battle of Scarif. So we know they're involved. Um, yeah, it's going to be one of those things where I'm going to be sad to see it go, but I'm going to be happy I got to experience it. And I'm just glad that I didn't, take the time. I'm glad I didn't shut it out. I'm glad I just kind of but you know what? I'm going to soldier through the first couple episodes in season 1 and come to realize that this is something Star Wars needed. As a fandom, as an IP, it goes to show that it doesn't have to be all kiddie all the time, that it can give you serious topics. And as long as it's done well, which it is, it's just absolute, just amazing cinema.
So, Jerry, by the way, these two can attest to this. I don't really want to get into it, but I seen your email and I intended to reach back. And we do have a stream tomorrow night. So just so we were clear, we'll be live about 10:05 Eastern tomorrow, reviewing these 3 episodes, and we'll probably be at it for a couple hours. And we may have a guest, maybe even 2 with us. We'll see. Still waiting word on that. In terms of not getting back to you, in a nutshell, I ended up in the hospital Friday. As most of you know, I had a heart attack last year, and most people seem to think whenever you have a heart attack and once it's done, it's just done. But there's repercussions to it. And in a nutshell, I ended up being okay in terms of that, but needed a blood transfusion. So I'm here, though, and I'm out. And if I wasn't, okay to be out, I wouldn't be out. So I apologize for not reaching back to you. I will make it a priority to reach out to you tonight, even if I have to take a break from Andor for a bit. Here's my thoughts, and I apologize for probably getting a little emotional here. There are people that just don't get this show. And they say it, we just don't get this show. Or I'll hear someone knock the writing. And, we're all allowed to be... Art is subjective. We all take it in different ways. I don't know if you guys caught it. If you go back to episode 8, before, when they're gathering, when they're walking up the streets to get to the plaza, before the massacre happens, they show kids. There are kids walking. But during the massacre, we don't see any kids, which obviously would be an automatic rated R rating. If you have social media of any sort, you see posts that you don't sign up to see, but you see them anyway, because that's the way social media works these days. If this show doesn't resonate with you, that's fine, whatever. But if you're one of those people sitting out there saying the writing doesn't make sense, or it's just bad, or I'm not into it because it's not fantasy enough, I've been the biggest advocate, and Johnny will tell you this. It used to be a big saying of mine on Wastelands and the early days of our YouTube stuff. Of, I want my entertainment to be a form of escapism. And I still want some of that. Like Randy said, not all Star Wars needs to be Andor, and frankly, it shouldn't be. But there are innocent kids still being slaughtered that you see footage of when you go to Twitter, when you go to Facebook. I'm not talking teenagers. I'm talking 4, 5, 6-year-old little girls and boys who just want to play and shouldn't be subjected to this stuff, being slaughtered. And we have people on this planet. We have a fucking co-owner of the Florida Panthers making light of it, and there are innocent fucking children being murdered. And for why? And I get it. It's not the first time in human history that this has happened, and it won't be the last time that this happens. And if you're sitting there and saying this doesn't make sense, then you are fucking out of touch. You don't understand what's going on planet Earth as we speak. And I don't care what side of the political fence you side on. That's your own doing. At the end of the day, for me, it always comes back to the kids. Because guess what? Johnny, Randy, and I, and anybody who's watching this right now who's old enough, can defend themselves to some extent and have some self-awareness of what's going on planet Earth. You know who doesn't? Innocent kids. Innocent children are blown up when Alderaan is blown up during A New Hope. Did the last 3 episodes give you some context why friggin' Alderaan gets chosen? It's not just because they think Leia is part of the Rebel Alliance. That is a revenge shot straight from Sheev himself. And that shit, the Gorman massacre, is happening in real life and has been for some time. And people just ignore it because it's easy to click off of something. Is it easy to click off something if it's your own niece or nephew or son or granddaughter that's being killed? You don't have to like the show. But don't you fucking dare sit here and argue that it doesn't make sense. And I've seen that too much, guys. I'm sorry. I'm trying to not be emotional over this. And maybe that's why it hits so hard for me as a father. And just as maybe I haven't always been a decent human being, but I like to consider myself one now. It hits hard. And no, that's one of the reasons why all Star Wars should not be like this. But it's okay to dip their toes in it once in a while. And again, I'm not just referring to events right now. We can go back to the 1940s. We can go back to the early 1900s. We can go back through 6,000 years of civilization. And this shit happens more often than it should. So be critical all you want. But don't sit here and say that it doesn't fucking make sense. Because it's based more in reality than half you people clearly understand. Johnny?
I have nothing to add on this topic. You summed it up. You said it all.
I was about to say, I think you said everything that needed to be said.
And again, I'm not saying you can't not like the show. You can think the show is garbage. You can think that there's not enough fantasy, which might even be warranted, judging by Dustin's comments earlier, hoping for the Luthen versus Sheev fight. But don't sit here and say it doesn't make sense. That's not right. That's a shot to things that are currently happening and things that happen all throughout human history. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And, it's tough and it's difficult. I had to get that off my chest. It's been bothering me since I was laying in a stretcher in the hospital. I had read certain things from certain people that should know better and certain people that have children and just could not be more fucking clueless to it. So yeah, that's probably one of the reasons it resonates with me. It's also one of the reasons we don't need a Gorman massacre every fucking episode. We don't. You know why it hit? Because we had how many episodes led into that one? Like in both seasons combined? What are we at? Like, would that have been the 20th episode?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. So 20, almost 1 hour episodes, 40 minutes to an hour episode. That's a lot of build up, right? Which is why I think many of us were surprised they followed up with episode 9 the way they did. Provides a little bit of hope, but it's still heavy too. The last thing on Andor, and I'm happy that it's doing this, is it went from being a critical success. It's the most successful critical Star Wars anything ever. But now, finally, whether it's via word of mouth or I'm assuming it has to be word of mouth. It could be just the times that we're in, but it started to hit rating wise too. There was this post that I posted in our group where I think it was Hollywood Reporter or something like that, or Variety, that said um, it had garnered the most Disney Plus subscribers of any Disney Plus show ever. And my comeback to that still is I don't know how they can jump to that conclusion because different people sign up for different reasons, regardless of when they sign up. So I believe in that one a little less. But Jeff Snyder covered this yesterday, and that was Andor season 2 right now is the fourth most streamed anything on planet Earth. But on top of that, Andor season 1 has popped back up to now the seventh most streamed anything on planet Earth over the course of the last month. And that never happened in season 1. Like, that gained some traction towards the end, but the ultimate knock on it was, wow, you greenlit season 2 to this show, and it was a ratings flop, which, sorry, but it was, whether we like the show or not. So it's good to see that this is happening because I think it gives it legs, because at the end of the day, dollars turn the world, whether we like it or not. You know, Johnny doesn't live in his big mansion because he's poor or anything. He's, secretly buddy with Bill Gates. No, I'm kidding about all that. But
Speak it into existence, please.
send some of that cheddar cheese this way. But what it does is it gives some significant hope, whether Dave Filoni wants it to happen or not, and that's a discussion we'll have another week, about them doing more series like Andor. And they should. And my argument for it, which I'm going to do actually a solo video on, but I'll bring it up here just briefly, is think about it. Most people who like Andor, and there's a lot of non-Star Wars fans who have grown to like it for, maybe fairly obvious reasons. But like, how old are people who watch the original trilogy now as kids? They would have to be, most of them, in their 50s, even early 60s. And Andor resonates with them more than any other show has, or any recent movies. Why should they stop creating content for the people who have loved Star Wars and helped grow Star Wars to the level that it is today? Why shouldn't they get content that's directed at them that's not kid friendly? That doesn't mean you need tits and ass hanging out and, sex scenes in Star Wars and fuck this and fuck that. I'm not saying you need any of that, but I am saying once every few years, there's no reason that they can't give you a show that's Andor-esque, set in a different time period, that drives towards adults, because you should not just be appealing to one demographic. You should be appealing to all demographics. And hopefully this allows them to do that. Let's move on, though. Fellas, we got to wrap this up here. I just have to ask you. Braun Breaker in 2 minutes or less. Clearly he's getting a push, and a damn big one at the moment. But if Triple H got sick and someone hired you to be the head booker, but you had to continue from where he left off, how do you book Braun, in these feuds versus what assumingly is going to turn out to be old bloodline / Punk versus, whatever this new dangerous alliance is? For me, it's simple. I'm a big Punk fan, but guess what, bud? You're eating some pins, and so is everybody else, and that includes Mr. And by the way, I didn't mean that in terms of Sabu, but R.I.P. to Sabu. Johnny actually was the first one to get me into Sabu. I was RVD gung-ho, and I remember he showed me some Sabu stuff before I even know who Sabu was. And, 60s just far too early to be passing away at. And, thoughts are with his family and friends. But to me, you can't be just having a guy like Braun go up against Punk, go up against Roman, go up against Jay, and lose those matches, but attack them afterwards and demolish them. He needs some legitimate wins against top-tier competition. Johnny?
Well, you've seen it. since we're at the point where Triple H is reusing angles he's been in to get other people over, this is evolution. And he just needs to be that. He needs to be somewhere in a mix between Randy and Batista. Like that's all they need to do here. They don't need to reinvent the wheel. He's seen it successfully, been a part of it successfully. He knows how to do it. He just needs to stick to that script. As long as he does that, then it'll be fine. But you're right. You can't have him. You can't have him doing meaningless jobs. He's still gonna get beat because they have to protect Seth, who is still the main event cash cow in that group, and that's fine. Randy and Batista ate a lot of pins for Rick and Hunter, so you know it'll be fine as long as they don't start doing meaningless jobs. And as long as the people that pin them are guys that are above him in the card in meaningful matches, and it doesn't happen too often, he'll be just fine coming out of it. But, you know, if he starts losing to people under him in the card and losing too often, then you're going to run into a problem, and it'll be a problem of your own making.
Randy?
I mean, obviously, so far they've booked him pretty strong in general. But if you're going to continue this, I'm fine with the monster role. I'm fine with giving him like that Goldberg-esque or even Batista type just role of just being a monster and destroying everything. And that's what he's been doing. And I would keep doing that for him. You got Heyman as a mouthpiece for now while it's not like he's a horrible promo, but he does need work. And that's like the main area, really. And having Heyman is huge for that. But yeah, you want to bake it, kind of name him like almost like the next big thing. Go for it, because I think he's got the talent, he's got the pedigree, and this is a perfect way to transition him to becoming like the face of the company years down the road while he just continues to grow. And that's how I'd book him. I'd groom him to be the next big thing.
Don't do that. He'll leave for 10 years if they do.
Yeah, this is not a shot at Claudio Casta, whatever the hell his last name is, aka Cesaro, but we don't need this to end up like Heyman and Cesaro or Heyman and Curtis Axel, which were not hits. Sorry, you can be the biggest Cesaro fan you want, but just wasn't a hit.
WWE did him dirty.
AEW, frankly, but I want Breaker to be in the same breath as Lesnar, Punk, Roman when it's all said and done, right? So not so much Seth. The Seth stuff. Seth is Seth. He's a great worker, one of the best in the company. His character is more tolerable now than before.
You didn't like his Joker vibes?
It was fucking cringeworthy. It's terrible. There's nothing good about that at all. I'm a guy who has knocked a lot of AEW the last couple of years, but I would take 90% of their characters over the way Seth was packaged the last while. So I thought Punk brought out the best in Seth, frankly, in terms of having the character drop a lot of that silliness. He still dressed like a goof, but the tone on the mic was way different. But yeah, just don't fumble it, please. For the love of God. For years and years and years, we talked about making new stars. You need to keep doing that, because guess what? Punk and Roman and even Seth, according to him, they're not on 10-year timetables here. Time's ticking, so you need to build new stars. And I would like them to not blow it. And I do like Johnny's evolution references. I think that's pretty bang on. But the last thing we need to see is more terrible John Cena matches at the end of someone's career, because they're fucking abysmal and hard to watch. And some of the worst wrestling I've ever seen. I'd rather not sit through that again. And I'll definitely never be comparing John Cena's heel turn to Hulk Hogan again, because this has been a massive fumble of epic proportions so far in my eyes. So, anyways, that's going to do it for this week. Andor is up now. I am going to go get a little bit of a snack, join the wife, and sit down and bask in whatever's to come. So, predictions, though, guys. One last prediction. Do we see Bix, yes or no? I'm going with yes, but I'm not saying Andor sees Bix. If I had to do that, I'd be Bix is shown, Cassian never sees her again.
Oh no, I agree with you on that. I feel like they're going to do something like that.
I don't think so.
No,
I
you
don't.
think that was it?
I mean, we talked about it last week. I like the idea. I still think it's entirely possible, but you know, money on the table. I don't think she shows up.
Well, we'll see who is right come tomorrow night. A name that we haven't also talked about very much, and a character that I quite like, who I thought was very prominent last week, and was fantastic when shown in episode 9, is Clea. I've really grown to like her. She almost seems like a pseudo Leia, and I
Can we
enjoy her.
not?
What?
I actually saw someone in a Facebook group today make a post that Clea is Leia because their hair is the same and they're
There's a
both
resemblance, but I can't
in the
see how that's possible.
yeah, especially not when the first time we saw Clea, Leia would have been like 12.
Yeah, accurate. So, or even like 14. But yeah, no, Clay is too old. But I do worry that she will also meet her. Clea, you can sell me more on survives and had some sort of a role in the Rebel Alliance that we just didn't really see, or maybe she just goes off. Luthen, I think's toast. But man, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow if we lose them both, because I really like the dynamic of both of those characters. So
Yeah, I think Clea is more survivable and believable as someone who was just in the background of the rebellion that we just never saw.
I think you're right. I absolutely think you're right. Johnny, where can everybody find you, man?
Oh, you can find me here, there, and everywhere. Mostly here on this channel. Twitch.tv/bros before pros. You know, when I feel like streaming a game, you'll find me over there.
Randy?
Next, you can find me at Giggity Giles, and every week you can find me here.
Next week, again, tentatively, we'll post something saying officially, hopefully, but we would have a Tuesday Andor sort of like all encompassing review show. And then Wednesday at around 10 o'clock Eastern, we would do Rogue One. We will also be talking about the rumored details of the Halloween series that came out a while back from Cinestealth and 3C Films. And then the following week, we would have some sort of show on the Tuesday, maybe wrestling heavy, because I think that would be post. No, it's not post anything. Is there an AEW pay-per-view?
Yeah, 25th.
Okay, so yeah, it would be that week. So either you'd have that, you'd have Saturday night's main event. So yeah, there's definitely going to be some wrestling to talk about as well. And then follow that up with a New Hope watch party. So that's the goal. We'll see if we're able to hit it. But for Johnny and Randy, I'm Sean. Have a great night, and we'll see you next week. So help me God if Jar Jar Binks shows up in this in the finale of Andor. Oh. I only say that because I heard a rumor about Naboo, but I don't know why we would see Naboo. So
why would you put that out there? This is not Darth M count.
This is reaching. I saw this too, by the way. A buddy of mine just sent me this thing going around that Bix is pregnant and the kid ends up being Poe. That makes sense time-wise, but my God, people are reaching. They're reaching because, of Oscar Isaac and Diego Luna's background, which...
Would that math wouldn't math, would it?
In terms of the age, it would, but at the end of the day, why would his last name be Dameron? Unless we find out Bix's name's Dameron. But don't you think Bix would allow the child to grow up with Cassian's last name? I sure as hell do. So I'm squashing that. I don't think there's any chance that's true. And also the comics conflict that. But as we've already seen, Tony Gilroy doesn't give a shit about your comic. He's just here to make good TV. Anyways, we will see you next week. And Jerry, I will reach out to you, buddy. Have a great night, everyone. Enjoy. I'm already hurting having to say goodbye to Luthen.